a theory of old that God, divinity, descends on man and helps him to grow, to evolve, to live nobly. That is the old tradition of the countries in the East, and also in a different way in the West. In belief, in such theories and belief, there is great comfort. The feeling that one is at least secure in something. That there is somebody that is looking after you in the world. That is a very old theory, and it has no meaning whatsoever.
Hey, brother.
That theory and teaching gives some kind of hope in a utopia, in the future, as made by the present, a hope arising from the limits of what one is now. Unless there is a radical transformation, such a future is just a modified continuity of what is now. One realizes that there is no security whatsoever in the things that thought has put together, if one has gone into it sufficiently, intelligently, rationally, sanely, to find out. One sees that there really is no structure, either in the future or in the past, or in the present, psychological, ideological, philosophical, religious, which can give any kind of security whatsoever. One accepts very easily the path that it is, well, whatever is the most satisfying, the most convenient, the most pleasurable. It is very easy to move into that groove. And authority dictates, lays down in a religious or a psychological system, a method by which, or through which, you are told you will find security. But if one sees that there is no security in any such authority, then one can find out whether it is possible to live without any guidance, without any control, without any effort, psychologically. So, one is going to investigate to see whether the mind can be free, to find the truth of this matter, so that one will never, under any circumstance, conform to any pattern of authority.
Good.
Psychologically. When one is conforming to a pattern, religious, psychological, or the pattern which one has set for oneself, there is always a contradiction between what one actually is and the pattern. There's always a conflict, and this conflict is endless. If one is finished with one pattern, one goes on to another. One is educated to live in this field of conflict because of these ideals, patterns, conclusions, beliefs, and so on. Conforming to a pattern, one is never free. One does not know what compassion is. One is always battling, and therefore giving importance to one's self. The self becomes extraordinarily important with the idea of self-improvement. So, is it possible to live without a pattern? Now, how is one, as a human being, the total representative of all mankind, how is one going to find out the truth of this matter? Because if one's consciousness is changed radically, profoundly, no, revolutionized rather than changed, then one affects the consciousness of the whole of mankind.
All of mankind.
going to go into the problem? With what capacity does one investigate? To investigate, there must be freedom. Freedom from the motive. If one wants to investigate the question of authority, well, one's background says, I must obey. I must follow. And in the process, one's background is always projecting. It's always distorting one's investigation. Can one be free of one's background so that it does not interfere in any way with one's investigation? One's urgency to find the truth, one's immediacy, one's demand. What's the background in abeyance? One's intensity. Find out is so strong that the background ceases to interfere. Although the background, one's education, one's conditioning is strong, it has accumulated for centuries. Consciously, one cannot find it, one cannot push it aside, one cannot battle with it. And one sees that to find the background only intensifies the background. Yet one's intensity to find out the truth of authority puts that background much further away. It is no longer impinging on one's mind. One needs to have tremendous energy to find out the truth of this matter. Ha!
Oh, that's right.
Mostly, this energy, is dissipated in the conflict between what is and what should be.
What is and what should be.
One sees that what should be is an escape from, or an avoidance of, the fact of what is. Or, you'd say, thought, incapable of meeting what is, projects what should be, and uses that as a lever to try to remove what is. Ha! So, is it possible to look at, to observe, what is, without any motive to change or transform it, or to make it conform to a particular pattern that you or another has established? Whatever may happen, well, may happen. The end of it. If one does, the background fades away. If one is very intense to understand, one forgets oneself. One forgets one is a Hindu, Christian, Buddhist. One forgets all one's background. Therefore the whole thing disappears. The background, the motive, everything. Because there is the present necessity. And this urgency to find out. The intensity that is necessary can only come into being when there is no conflict, and no effort, and therefore no reaction. It implies that one must be completely alone in one's investigation. Aloneness does not mean isolation. Aloneness does not mean one is withdrawn and has built a wall around oneself. Alone means one is all one. That's it. And one is a total human being, representing all humanity. One's consciousness has undergone a change through perception, a radical mutation, which is the awakening of intelligence. Intelligence finishes forever. With psychological authority, it profoundly affects one's consciousness. Is it possible to live a life without any pattern? Without any goal? Without any idea of the future? A life without conflict? It is only possible when one lives completely, lives with what is. With what is means with that which is actually taking place. Live with it. Do not try to transform it. Do not try to go beyond it. Do not try to control it. Do Do not try to escape from it. Just look at it. Live with it. If you are envious or greedy, jealous, or you have problems, sex, fear, whatever they are, if I may, I suggest you live with them without any movement of thought that wants to move away from them. Which means what? One is not wasting one's energy in control, suppression, in conflict, in resistance, in escape. All that energy is being wasted. Now, one has gathered it up. Because one sees the absurdity of it, the falseness of it, the unreality of it. One now has the energy to live with what is. One has that energy to observe without any movement of thought. It is the thought that has created jealousy. It is thought that says, I must run away from it. I must escape from it. I must suppress it. If one sees the falseness of escape, resistance, suppression, then that energy is gone, which was gone into escape, resistance, and suppression is gathered to observe. Then what takes place? One is not escaping, not resisting, and one is envious. The envy being the result of the movement of thought. The envy arises from comparison, measurement. I have not. You have. And thought, woo! Because it has been educated to run away, runs away from this thing. Not because one sees the falseness of it, one stops. And one has the energy to observe this envy. That very word, envy, is its own condemnation.
Right.
When one says, I am envious, there is already a sense of pushing it away. So, one must be free of the influence of the word to observe. And this demands tremendous alertness, tremendous watchfulness, awareness, so as to not escape, and so as to see that the word envy has created a feeling. For without the word, is there a feeling? If there is no word, and therefore no movement of thought, is there envy? The word has created the feeling because the word is associated with the feeling. It is dictating the feeling. Can one observe without the word? Now, words are the movement of thought used to communicate with oneself or with another. And there are no words. There is no communication between the fact and the observer. Therefore, the movement of thought as envy has come to an end. Come to an end completely. Not temporarily. One can look at a beautiful car and observe the beauty of its lines, and that is the end of it. To live with what is completely implies no conflict whatsoever. Therefore, there is no future as transforming it into something else. The very ending of it is the gathering of supreme energy, which is intelligence. Thank you.
Woo! Yeah, it's great. It's way great.